You want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered? Be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real. As Roland Martin Unfiltered. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered daily digital show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. You can make this possible.
Girls are allowed. I'm white. I got you, huh?
Illegally selling water without a permit
on my property.
Whoa! Hey!
Give us your right.
You don't live here.
I'm uncomfortable.
All right, y'all. Texas is one among many states creating new voting laws led by Republicans. They, of course, are specializing in voter suppression. A segregationist term from the Jim Crow era referring to the purity of ballots was included in a bill's statement of purpose in Texas. Now, it was designed to preserve the purity of the ballot box, a phrase drafted specifically to disenfranchise black voters following the Civil War. Well, Democrat Rep. Raphael Anchía told bill sponsor Representative Briscoe Cain about this, and y'all, it was so delicious how he just methodically dismantled this ignorant fool. Now, I want y'all to watch out, okay? Watch out for the folk standing behind the white nationalist Republican. Want y'all to see how they just sort of scatter. Watch.
You chose a peculiar term in drafting this bill, and it's on page 1, line 12. Do you have a copy of the bill in front of you?
I do, yes, sir.
And you talked about preserving the purity of the ballot box. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's a quotation from the Texas Constitution. It'd be Article 6, Section 4.
Right. And are you aware of the history behind that provision of the Constitution?
I'm not.
Okay. Are you aware that references to, quote, purity of the ballot box used throughout this country's history has been a justification for states to disenfranchise groups they deem unfit to vote or somehow lacking?
I didn't know that. I thought it meant...
Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Anchía.
Can you kindly direct our guests in the gallery to refrain from outbursts?
The chair will remind members, guests in the gallery to refrain from outbursts. This is your first warning. Please contain yourself.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Well, so I wasn't aware of that. I guess I thought purity meaning not having fraud in it or something. And,
Okay. Are you aware of the 1972 Supreme Court case Dunn versus Blumenstein?
I'm not.
All right. In that case, they noted that statements, quote, related to the preservation of purity at the ballot box, while a formidable sounding state interest, cannot be used to justify any and all voting requirements that a state might think up. End quote. Did you run across this explanation when you specifically used that term?
No, not at all.
What was your motivation for using that term purity at the ballot box? Because that's a specific set of words that has a lot of meaning in state history.
Well,
what was your intention?
I'm going to answer for you. You know, you may have figured out by now I really like the state constitution, and I think as a legislative body, just as Congress should, they should be looking for their authority from their charter, from the thing that gives them power. And so when we're looking at what authorizes us, right, the sovereign people of the state of Texas who delegated their authority through the Constitution, we then should look to the Constitution and say, what gives us authority to do anything on this issue? And that's the provision that does that, and so that would be why.
And do you know what the motivation was for that Texas Constitution? And you're referring specifically to the Texas Constitution of 1876, correct?
Yeah, our current Constitution, yes.
All right.
Yeah.
Did you look at the history before using that word?
No. The only thing, if we were to have a discussion, maybe over some coffee or a drink, somebody I could go into the details of Article 1 really well. I've read the debates in the journals of the Convention of 1875 on that for that thing, but I'm not familiar with the one.
You may have missed it then.
Article 6.
And this would have been very obvious, I think, to anybody who looked at that and looked at that language. And that provision was drafted specifically to disenfranchise black people, black voters, in fact, following the Civil War. Did you know that?
No, I'm sorry to hear that.
And are you familiar with white primaries?
We've heard and read of such thing. I'm glad
have you read about those?
It's a disgusting thing. Yes.
Did you realize that purity of the ballot box language in the Texas Constitution gave rise to all white primaries?
No, I didn't.
And did you know that this purity at the ballot box justification was also used during the Jim Crow era to prevent black people from voting?
No, those are troubling things. I didn't know that was their
Did
reason.
you know that in states across the country that penal disenfranchisement schemes were put in place, including in Texas, as far back as 1845, to effectively lock African American people out of the political process? Are you aware of this history?
You know, I think we said a few times that I wasn't aware of any kind of malicious intent in the use of that term.
He looked like C.J. Pearson on the show last Thursday when he couldn't answer a damn question I asked. But I got to show y'all this. I want y'all to go forward. I want y'all to go almost to the end, because when Anchía was speaking, you saw the woman come up. She's like, I got to get this ass whooping on tape. Let me go ahead and get my camera out. Y'all, roll the video forward. Y'all see she walk up. She's like, ooh, I got to get this ass whooping on my phone. Let me go ahead. She walk up because she's like, he looked like a damn fool. That right there, Michael, was a perfect example of how you expose Republican white supremacy, how you expose the language that they use. And some of y'all have been asking, and yes, I had to hit my people down in Texas. That is a brother. Y'all go to the video. That is a brother y'all see back there. Show the video, please. That's a brother. That's a brother right there. That is State Representative James White. His name is actually James White from East Texas. So that brother in that seersucker suit is a Republican from East Texas. You saw even his ass. That ass would start coming. He thought, look. You saw he on his phone. He probably sitting here playing bingo. He checking his Bitcoin to see if it's up or down. But that's how you gotta expose these fools, Michael.
And I'm glad he finally scooted. I mean, it took him a minute to get out of there, but he finally did. But it was very reminiscent, frankly, when you do some of your monologues, when you break people down.
Yes, we call them deconstruction.
Yes, that's what you call it, and that's exactly what he did. And props to Representative, I think it was Anchía. I forget the name. It's not up on the screen anymore. Oh, it is on it. How do you pronounce it?
I think it's Anchía. It is what it is.
Anchía. Well, major props to him. He did a wonderful job. His staff did a good job researching everything. Whether you believe in the Republican representative's idea that he didn't have any idea, that he just pulled purity out of the sky. That just seemed to be a perfect word for this particular piece of legislation, that he had no idea, because he didn't think anyone from Texas, whether it's a Democrat or not, would break him down to the history of that word and that provision. So props to the representative, and I'm glad you had it on your show.
I just loved how he just methodically went through that whole thing there, Julian. And the thing here, it was so bad that Republicans pulled that fool off the bill. They're like, we can't just let your ass just talk no more. So we just gone. We can't let you talk anymore. They're gonna do what they do, but this is how you expose the sheer ignorance of these people.
Well, Representative Anchía was brilliant in terms of, as you say, deconstructing the whole notion of purity in ballots. And what he pointed out, which is important to note, this stuff happened during Reconstruction. This is post-Reconstruction. This is what post-Reconstruction was about. It was about Black people beginning to get a little bit of power and influence, and white legislators saying, oh, hell no, we're going to take it back. He took that little idiot apart. I mean, he was a little idiot. And I mean, either he didn't know anything, which is clear, but he didn't even pretend. And Brother Man sitting back there, he had his head down at some point. He had literally had his head bowed, and that probably should have been the moment for him to slither up out of there. And it's also, except for that brother, you know, the whole chorus, the little doo-doo-wops, were basically white women, and that says something as well about where white women are, some white women are, around our rights.
So I want to show y'all this here, Avis. So this right here is, this is 18 minutes in. You see folk just start deserting. You see that look right there like, okay, how long we got to, because he getting just jacked. You see homegirl sign right there like, ow, this hurt. Just go ahead and pull the audio up, y'all. This is a little bit more.
Someone takes advantage of them.
Can you point to me where instruction is given, where in your bill instruction is given in a language other than English? Because you said this bill is designed to help those people. So where in your bill does it talk about non-English speakers and assisting those people?
Well, it doesn't speak to that, but what it does is ensures that, like in the oath of assistance provision of this bill.
What page are you talking about?
Let's look for it. Yeah, there we go. We're on page 10, but this section begins at the top of 9, so it's section 4.02. And in chapter 64.031 of the election code, I believe sets out those who qualify to receive assistance.
What line of your bill is that?
Okay. Of what?
What you're referring to. You said in your bill, and you directed me to page 10. What line are you
Yeah, we're going to be at section 4.02. So going below section 4.02, so that's page 9, line 25.
Page 9, line 25. Go on.
Yeah. Okay. So that's why we're amending this existing oath, you know, to make sure that people who are eligible for assistance, that no one pressures them or, you know, or maybe takes advantage of them. Someone that maybe is unable to properly or to read the ballot in the language that it's written in. Because
I can't watch that junior high schooler any longer, Avis.
I mean, it's kind of like when the teacher asks you, like, where's your homework? And you're like making up all sorts of excuses, trying to come up with answers that you clearly have no clue about. I mean, that's kind of what that felt like to me. But another thing that really crossed my mind is, you know, the fact that he supposedly didn't know the origins of the phrase purity of the ballot box is interesting when you juxtapose that against the fact that in state legislatures across the nation, you have a lot of Republican lawmakers who are going out of their way to try to outlaw, for example, the teaching of the 1619 Project, or they're going out of their way to try to outlaw any sort of understanding of history as it actually happened, particularly when it deals with issues of race. And what he was unable to do in terms of claiming to not even know this suggests that those efforts are even more important, because clearly that's a reflection of ignorance. That's a reflection of not knowing the history of the state that he claims to sort of revere so much and want to protect so much. So, you know, I just find it interesting that the very same people who are, you know, going all across the nation saying that, well, you don't need to teach history as it actually happened as a result on issues of race, because in essence, we don't want to make people uncomfortable, white people uncomfortable specifically, are sitting here doubling down and actually going through a second era of Jim Crow-isms with their various different laws that are being pushed in over 40 states across the nation to make it more difficult, specifically for Black people to vote. But when called on it, the only thing that they can do is say, well, I didn't even realize that that was it.
Yeah, folks, again, The term purity was yanked at the last minute before the Texas House passed their voter suppression bill. 18 amendments, 13 of them from Democrats, were added to the Republican election bill before it was passed 78-64 on Friday. All right, folks, back to our Roland Martin Unfiltered video in just one moment.
It's time to be smart. When we control our institutions, we win. This is the most important news show on television of any racial background. Y'all put $2, $3, $4, $5, $10, $15, $20, $30 on this and keep this going. What you've done, Roland, since this crisis came out in full bloom. Anybody watching this, tell your friends. Go back and look at the last 2 weeks, especially of Roland Martin Unfiltered. I mean, hell, go back and look at the last 2 days. You've had sitting United States senators today, Klobuchar and Harris. Whatever you have that you can bring to Roland Martin Unfiltered to support it, please do, because this information may literally save your life.
Watch Roland Martin Unfiltered daily at 6 p.m. Eastern on YouTube, Facebook, or Periscope, or go to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered Daily Digital Show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Our goal is to get 20,000 of our fans contributing $50 each for the whole year. You can make this possible. RolandMartinUnfiltered.com.